What if you could help others to find the power to heal themselves? Physically, emotionally, and spiritually.
When I started teaching my classes, it was in 2002, and I was just doing the past life regressions and contacting the subconscious part. But then as the time went on and we found how powerful this was and what we could do with it, a lot of the students began saying, you know, advanced past life regression doesn't really tell what it's all about. This is so much more than that. We think you should change the name. So it was a few years ago we decided to change the name to Quantum Healing Hypnosis Technique. And this is the healing technique that we've now been teaching it, well, since 2002, that's 12 years.
What if you could time travel with them? Visit mythical places or angelic realms, other worlds, other galaxies. Help others to speak to their higher selves. You can. Dolores has taught thousands of people from across the world how to use QHHT, and now you can learn her method by going directly to dolorescannon.com. And don't forget to mention the discount code MORETALKS.
Established over 100 years ago, Watkins Books is one of the world's oldest and leading independent bookshops specializing in esoterica. We have the widest selection of esoteric books in the UK, and our friendly and knowledgeable staff are here to assist you in a unique ambience of our shop. So come and visit us in the heart of London as we're open every day.
The More Show is supported by Mindscape, Paranormal and UFO Matrix magazines, available for download on all major digital platforms. The comments and views expressed on The More Show are those of the people that make them and do not necessarily reflect the view of Kevin Moore, The More Show, or this radio station and its affiliate or sponsors. This show is for entertainment purposes only.
Broadcasting from the UK and across the world online, you're now watching the UK's only alternative late-night talk show. And I'm your host, Kevin Moore. For the next hour, I'll be covering subjects that will open up your mind and provide you with information you may have never heard before. On today's show, I'm joined with Ingrid Martine, whose conviction that learning should be fun and lifelong has taken her from her native Germany to both academia and corporate environments throughout the world. Her recognized expertise in adult learning, psychology and leadership development is currently applied as an internationally certified executive and team coach. Her new book, The Ungain, is based on the premise that we have more to unlearn than learn in order to meet current work and life challenges. And it's both a captivating story and an inspirational invitation for organizational leaders to engage in a cutting-edge paradigm shift about how 21st century organizations do business. While speaking specifically to managers and other leaders, it also has a universal appeal for we are all, after all, managers of our own lives. Ingrid Martine, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Kevin. I'm glad to be here.
It's great to have you on, Ingrid. It's really great to have you on. Now, we currently taped this interview previously, and there was an issue with the interview, so I've got you back on, and I know now with the amount of redundancy we've got here, there's no way we're going to lose this interview. So I appreciate you coming back on. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Now, just tell the audience, to begin with, a little bit about this book. What direction is this book coming from, and what is it about?
Well, the Ungame really got started when I came to the United States, and I was only 11 years old, and I noticed that there was quite a distance between what people said and what people did. And it got me interested in human behavior. It got me interested in spiritual practice a little down the road. It got me interested in trying to reconcile and understand what happens that people say one thing and then do another. And so the way that happened was when I noticed that people in the United States pledged allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and, ended with, and justice for all. Well, this was clearly not justice for all, because there was quite a discrepancy between how blacks were treated, how women were treated. And so the interest in human behavior and that phenomenon began. And I realized later on, as I continued to delve into personal growth material and spiritual practice, that we really, as humanity, have a lot more to unlearn than to learn. And by unlearning, I mean how we behave, how we show up in the world. And therefore, I called the book The Ungame, foreplay to business as unusual. In other words, we've been going along as humanity, acting from the kinds of thinking that has gotten us to where we are now, which I think is not too great a place to be. And so there's massive opportunity to unlearn what we have taken for granted is the right thing to do. And so this book and the coaching model I use is a challenge to the thinking that underlies how we show up in the world. And when we come from a thinking that is that embodies age-old wisdom principles or spiritual principles, then we have a chance of turning this ship around that we're in right now, which I think is the greatest challenge to humanity that we have ever faced.
And what in general do you think we have to unlearn?
We have to unlearn, for example, that we are separate individuals, that the Americans are so brilliant at individualism and individualism and individual rights before all others, before the common good. So this individualism is one thing that we in the United States certainly have to unlearn, meaning that our individual self-interest can and must be represented in a group self-interest, in our national and international self-interest, but we can't put our self-interest above the interest of the common good. That's one principle, that we are disconnected from one another. And so this is a spiritual principle of we are all one. And what hurts one of us is going to hurt all of us at some level. So that's one thing to unlearn. There's another thing to unlearn that's all related to this great lie that we are not all one, that we are disconnected. At some level, we are one, and therefore we stand a good deal to gain by learning to collaborate with one another, rather than when you're based in this individualism, that American individualism, then competition is primary. Now, I don't have anything against competition, but how about competition within yourself to be the best self you could possibly be? Again, that's a spiritual principle. So, those two come to mind, and there are certainly other principles, but let's stop here for the moment.
And as you read this book, these principles, are tied into the narrative of the story, and with the book as well. It's not really a book as though it's your experience. This is from this is the story of this is someone's story, isn't it? It's almost a fictional work, isn't it?
It is a fictional work. I have fictionalized. I have made into story. And I'll tell you in a minute why. I have made into story the coaching model that I am trained in. And really, the subtitle of the book, Foreplay to Business as Unusual, is really a play on words, because the 4 is the number 4. 4 moves or 4 plays on the playing field of life that make the difference to creating our life the way we have not created it before. In other words, to create and design our life as business as unusual. But I've done this in story form, Kevin, because you and I and everyone else on the planet, we are wired, our brain, our being is wired for story. Story has been used to teach, to transmit civilization, to transmit wisdom, and stories stick. They're like Velcro. I could be telling you those 4 moves or those 4 plays to living your life in an unusual way, and you would say ho-hum, because you would get it intellectually, but you wouldn't get this at the level of your DNA. You wouldn't get this at the level of heart. And if there's anything that we need right now, is we need a tough mind and a tender heart. And that combination, unfortunately, is not all too common. And the book definitely demonstrates the tough mind and the tender heart, and it demonstrates that all of us are in the same boat together. We can't think of this boat of life and sit on one end with other people on the other end and say, in good faith, when we look at the hole in the boat, oh, gee, I'm glad that hole is not on our side. How ridiculous is that? Which goes back to that spiritual principle of we're all in this together.
Okay. Now, is the book written from the perspective of business owners, or can anyone who wants to improve their lives, come and find this book and use it for non-business improvement as well?
Well, that's a very good question, Kevin, and the answer to that is absolutely. As a matter of fact, I put it into a business environment, but I could have just as easily put it in a family environment. I could just as easily have put it into a school environment. I could have just as easily put it into a church environment or some sort of religious institution. It really doesn't matter. Wherever people are gathered, we have challenges for how to be with one another and how to design our lives. So I just happened to put it in there because I wanted the business community to see that life could be different in business. And there are some businesses that actually embody these principles, such as Patagonia and Interface Floor, which is a huge multinational corporation, and a number of others, really. But the point is that there are some really, really bad corporate actors out there. And one of the things that the world is concerned about is that we now have what President Eisenhower in the 50s warned us against. He warned us against the military-industrial complex. Well, now we can be warned in the United States, certainly about the military-industrial congressional complex, because Congress, the government, is very, very much influenced by corporate money, and so we've got worldwide some really terrible corporate actors. Now, I'm no fool, Kevin. I don't expect these terrible corporate actors to be reading my book. They're not interested particularly in being better actors. But it's useful also on a micro level, on a smaller level for
Yeah.
Individual people and individual business owners who might, out of reading that, as a matter of fact, I do book studies, and it does do that. It helps them do their business better and treat their people with a greater compassion.
And when you say actors, I mean, you're then, I suppose, looking at life as being a stage that the soul comes onto, and and it's a stage where we can, produce an outcome that we're acting in. It's not real in a sense. It is, but it's one. It's the play is we're writing our movie script. We're in charge of the direction it goes in.
Yes, we are. Absolutely, but many people don't realize that. Many people are like the feather in the wind rather than the wind. Many people act as if life happens. Well, life does happen, but don't end there. We are not in control of that. But what we have some influence over is how we respond to how life happens. And that makes all the difference in the world. And we could be coming from, as many, many, many people are, we could be coming from a victim mentality, or we can come from a creator mentality. And again, you ask about spiritual principles.
Yeah.
To be the creator of our life is based on spiritual principles, namely that we are more than our psychology. We are more than our thoughts. We are more than our feelings. We are more than our conclusions. We have a choice of who we are willing to be. And that goes into the spiritual domain. Who we are willing to be comes from a place in us that is immune to the yada, 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 to the what I refer in the book as monkey mind, that self-limiting conversation that keeps us in place, that keeps the status quo. So, as the creator, we come from a place that's untouchable by any circumstances. And that is, that's a spiritual place within us. And we all have that. We just don't all have access to it. And in the book, essentially, I really do go into the how to have access to it. I happen to do it in the book through the coaching process, and in real life, I do it through that coaching process. And the result is a great deal of empowerment for people who, let's face it, we want to be free. We want to be free spiritually, emotionally, behaviorally. And this coaching model that I story in the Ungame has the potential, with support, to set you free. So I'm very passionate about that, as are my clients, I'm delighted to say.
So you're giving away parts of the coaching model in the story in the book, and we can apply this coaching model to our lives now for whatever that we want to improve. So okay, so say that it's we're really just into trying to manifest the life that we want. We want to manifest that certain special someone in our life. We want to manifest that job. We want to manifest that particular business contract potentially. Whatever it is. I mean, how would you advise us to do that from what's in the book?
Okay, so what's in the book is, of course, to some extent limited, because it is it's sort of like going to a restaurant. You have a menu and then you have the meal. Some people act as if the menu is the meal. So the book is the menu. The meal is the actual experience of coaching. However, if there are people who already are, and I'm sure some of your listeners, or many of your listeners, are self-aware, and they are very capable of observing themselves. That's a tremendous plus, but it's not necessary. Well, if they are, however, then the book will help them probably more than the people who aren't quite as self-aware, although those people could go ahead and contact me for coaching, for example. That would be really nice. But if you're very self-aware, one of the things you realize, Kevin, is that you, like everyone else, has blind spots. And in coaching, how you get to the thing that you want to manifest, that relationship, the job, and so forth, is to become exquisitely self-aware in real time, so that you can actually bring your thinking up for observation, because that's what we do in the Ungame and in coaching. We bring your current thinking up for observation. And when you see how your thinking is affecting how you're acting right now, then you have a choice. The moment you see it, you have a choice of being able to change it. So if you think that you have to do more and more and more and more and more in order to manifest that job, it might be that we bring that thinking up for observation, and when you see it, you might see that doing more is not necessarily the thing, but perhaps that it is doing what is in line with your goal and in line with who you really are. And that changes a lot of things. It makes you more focused. It makes you more inquiring. Like, is this really the job I want, or what lights up my life? So the conversations become very, very different as you are in the coaching process. And many in the book have decided that they've learned a lot and they want to learn more, and so they do a book study, or they contract for coaching.
Do you think that by writing down the life that you could potentially, what it is in life that you want, be it the life you want or whatever it may be in the now that you're looking for, by writing it down and saying, right, this is what I really want to head towards, and now that I've uncovered my limiting beliefs, which we'll get into in a minute, but by writing it down, it's sort of, it's you're going to walk that path then to make it happen.
Oh, absolutely, Kevin. I mean, I think what you're getting at, that I think is very important, is that it will be very, very good to support the positive future we envision, and it does. I call it, for lack of a better term, I call it tricking our mind. You see, we don't have to trick our voice of wisdom, but most of us are in a fog about that voice of wisdom. The mind that we do have to trick is what I'm referring to in the book as monkey mind. And so when we actually write down the life we envision, one of the things that we're doing is we're doing something in physical reality. We are not keeping this vision only in our heads. And when you put something down in action, when you do it, and that is an act, writing it down, posting it on your refrigerator, having pictures with it, it anchors it in your mind and supports you in focusing on this goal. And it tells your self-limiting chatter, which is still going to come up, because it is something, when you're going for that, that's dangerous to your self-limiting mind. It's dangerous to the status quo. And you are going to come up with, as soon as you have this vision and this, in your mind about this positive outcome you want to produce, and you start to look at how you're going to put it into action, the first thing that comes up is no. The first thing that comes up from your self-limiting mind is, I wouldn't go there if I were you. So yes, we need to trick our self-limiting mind, and one of the ways to do that is exactly as you describe.
Right. And again, this can be applied to the corporate side as well. I don't want to miss that side out, because I know that's an important part to this, and I think I think more people nowadays are sort of, in a funny way, are sort of more self-employed anyway. Really, they are their own little businesses in a sense than they ever were, in the past, with the way the economy is right now.
Yes.
So I don't want to miss.
But people are in business. It's all personal, Kevin. The whole thing is personal. So whether it's in business or anywhere, the whole thing is personal.
Of course, absolutely. And where do these limiting? What are some of the most common limiting beliefs, would you say, for people? And where do they? Are we always aware of them? Do you think?
We are almost never aware of them, which is why they're so powerful. We are not aware. We might be intellectually aware of them, but not at the moment that we're having them. At the moment that we're having them, they don't feel like beliefs. They feel simply like the truth. And we will say, but it's true. And here's one of them. You ask, what are the most common ones? How about this one? I can't. I can't. And the moment that somebody with that deep limiting belief comes up with, maybe I can, the limiting belief is going to say, no, you can't. No, you can't. If I were you, I wouldn't even try that. It's dangerous. Keep on doing what you're doing, you'll be safe. So right. I can't is one of those limiting beliefs, and people recognize them maybe afterwards, but not at the moment that they're having them, which is why coaching is so important. Another one is something like, life is hard. When you have that belief, you are going to go ahead and hone in with incredible focus on all of the evidence for life is hard, and you will make yourself right. Your limiting mind wants more than anything to be right, hates being wrong. Wrong is like dying, and so you're going to only be seeing that kind of evidence. It's not. I mean, let's face it. We could all find evidence for life is hard, but the limiting belief is such that that you will be interested in nothing else but that. Whereas somebody who sees that as a limiting belief is going to be able to say, I see, there you are again. It is not the truth, and I could be interested in something much more interesting, namely the life that I want to manifest, the job that I want to manifest. And I could be interested in life is a challenge, which is different from life is hard, or life is an opportunity. And if I'm interested in that, and if I am the wind rather than the feather in the wind, then I can go ahead and focus on gathering evidence for life is an opportunity, you see. And I will shut my self-limiting conversation up. So did I answer your question?
You did, and it's very, very interesting. The main protagonist, Sam, in the book, do you think in the end he's found his purpose? And by finding his purpose, by being true to himself of what he wants, he's then able, everything seems to fall in place then. He's not doing it from the perspective of trying to make as much as he can do. It's more of a case of the service as well, which in the end does create the wealth that he's after.
Yes, he does find a more satisfying purpose. I think in the beginning, he's a young manager, scared, wants to look good, wants to be good, has a very individualistic motive, self-interest. And at the end, he realizes that there's a much, much bigger game out there for him and that he's up to it. What is not so much in the book, although it's being mentioned, is that he finds who he really is in his best self, in his hero's heart, who he uniquely is and what he has uniquely to contribute. And all of us, you, me, everybody on the planet, has something unique to contribute that other people don't. And in the coaching process, and again, the book only alludes to this, but in that process, and of course he goes through coaching through the entire book, he finds out what those qualities are that are uniquely Sam. And therefore, what he can do, being the wind rather than the feather in the wind, he learns to direct those qualities on behalf of his life intentions. By his life intentions, I mean who he's longing to be, like an effective manager, a great communicator, a loving family member. I don't know what, an adventurer. I mean, to me, coaching is an adventure. The journey inward is an adventure that you can bring to the outside to manifest the life that you want. So he does do that. Now, that said, Kevin, I do want to underline, there is this kind of saccharine, shallow, sweet notion that, if you, have attained spiritual principles, that then, life is wonderful. Well, life is life. The things that are happening will keep on happening. However, when you master these principles, what is happening, you are not going to be buttressed around, and you are not going to be at the effect of those things. You're going to be more at cause. That is to say, you're going to be more the creator of your life rather than the victim in your life. And that, of course, is wonderful.
Oh, yes, absolutely. But it's hard, isn't it, sometimes to really, figure out what it is that you really, want to do. What is your purpose? And I guess some people, go throughout all their life and never do that. But then I see people who do. I've been with someone who has, and it's just incredible what happens from that space. It really is. Some of us don't always have the opportunity maybe to do that because it takes maybe support from someone else to help you through that process, be it financially or some other way to see you through. But I think we all have if we just trusted our gut instinct, it would only lead us into that direction.
Well, I think you mentioned some important principles. You mentioned support, which everything is easier with support. And all of us, I don't care who it is, you, me, everybody, I have a coach, my coach has a coach. Coaching is something that we all have benefit from because we all have blind spots and we can't see what we can't see, but somebody else can help us see it. So it's support. The other thing that you said was, some people never figure out. It is true. Some people never would be able to articulate it, and they never get to that place. But I would tweak what you said. I would use a different language. There may not be anything to figure out. As a matter of fact, in this coaching model and in the book, I'm sure that I mentioned it somewhere in there. There's nothing to figure out, but there is everything to observe. And so there's enormous power in observing your thinking with support, and with that, you will arrive at your own answers. You see, I as a coach, sometimes people think coaching, people give advice and they have answers. I don't have any answers. I don't have any advice. And if you read the book carefully, you'll see the coaches don't give any advice either. They simply help Sam to see what his self-limiting thinking is, knowing that when he sees it, then he will eventually live into his answers. And so the problems that we have, sometimes we think we have to solve problems. Well, we have to solve problems really, well, I'll back off of that one. But let me say this. Our problems, most of the time, if we're lucky and if we're aware and if we're awake and alert, our problems can solve us. We don't necessarily solve our problems because our problems are related. Every suffering that we have is related to how we think.
Yes, it is, and so we have to be, careful of making sure that we are thinking, as not as positively, but as I don't know, really. Sometimes, yes, positively, but also not to ignore the negative thoughts. But I think really to come from that space of acceptance in the now, being happy with the present moment, and knowing that by accepting the present moment, no matter how hard it is, that we still have the power to change the future and create that future.
Well, I think that you just hit on something very, very profound and important. A lot of times people think, and again, this is really a distinction that's a spiritual related to spiritual principle. A lot of people think, positive thinking, positive thinking, positive thinking, that'll get me to where I want to go. Nothing could be further from the truth, because I'll use a little word picture here. If you are on the path, and in the middle of your path is a turd of some kind, and you spray perfume on the turd, it's still a turd. So this positive thinking is like spraying perfume on a turd. It is not going to make the smelly stuff go away. So as you said, it's more about accepting what is, accepting, okay, this is so, and not fighting it. Embracing what is so allows you to be present to it, and then you can go ahead and create as you accept, your area of acceptance of life grows. Well, then you can go ahead and create a life that's better, and then you don't have to spend time in the presence of of any turd.
Yeah, just going back to, this being a story, and I was saying to you off air that it's, quite unusual to come across a story that's based on, personal development, best you can be, power of attraction, law of attraction. It's all in there within a story. So again, why a story?
Okay, that's a great question, Kevin, for me, because I come from a background of being a lifelong educator, initially being in the school system, later on in corporations doing training and consulting. And one of the things that I'm very passionate about and concerned about is creating an environment of learning where people really, really can empower themselves. Because so many of us feel so stuck in our lives, and we feel so helpless in light of the changes that are occurring in the world that we don't understand, and so forth and so on. So there's a lot of suffering going on. Well, I know what it takes for people to learn, both from the perspective of a teacher, a former teacher, and from the perspective of a coach. And so I wrote this book as a story because I noticed that in education, when we tell people information, that information is oftentimes just glossed over. It doesn't sink in, or it sinks in just on the surface. It winds up being an intellectual understanding that we can't apply to our lives. And so in the book, I wanted to slow things down. I wanted the reader to uncover step by step by step this coaching model, to uncover the coaching model, the pieces in it, and how they could be valuable. And so by doing this as a story, and a little bit by little bit, like a little bit, the reader integrates it more, slows down. People report that they read it and reread a paragraph, put notes in the margins. They really engage with it. And, you and I both know that the most important thing in life is engagement, whether that's in relationship. We want to feel connected in relationship. We want to feel connected to our spiritual program. We want to feel connected to life, because the opposite of that is isolation and depression. And so engagement is so critical. And people really, people sometimes, here's an unexamined assumption, some limited thinking. People think that people don't want to learn. Baloney. People are dying to learn. They want to learn, but they want to learn what matters to them and what applies to their life. Yeah. And when they do that, then, believe me, they are the most amazing students. And so I wanted to create a learning environment in the Ungame, and of course I do this in my coaching, a learning environment where the reader or the client in coaching can discover their best and highest self. Right. And embrace all the power that they have. Because if there's one thing I want them to get that they oftentimes do not have, I want them to know they are much, 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 much more powerful than they think.
Yeah, it's never fair. We never have enough time to sort of delve into some of this stuff, because that's quite powerful what you said there as well. And I'm just going to switch it as well back to the business side in some sense, that with your coaching as well, which is aimed towards businesses as well, not just individuals. Do you, there's you talked about some deep parts earlier on where you talked about truths in a sense, the wisdom truths, and you talked about competition and oneness. How do you bring that into the corporate environment where it's just such a cutthroat industry out there? No matter what sort of industry you're in, there's either a winner or a loser. How do you bring these spiritual principles in so that we can all win, and can we all win in a sense where there is enough for everyone?
That's wonderful. Yeah. So the short answer is, very carefully and little by little. But the more complex answer is, when I do a book study, for example, of the Ungame, this very question that you just raised oftentimes comes up. And so then we can talk about it and inquire into it. One thing that we can, for instance, say, well, what does it really mean when we say everyone wins? And in the context of, let's say, a manager and an employee, which oftentimes, people come to coaching or to the Ungame with questions because they're experiencing conflict as a manager or as a parent or as a teacher or whatever. And so we might redefine winning, because most of the time people don't look at it that way. But think about it. As a manager, you win when things are moving along towards a positive outcome that you have as an agenda in your department, let's say. And the employee, might win if you actually say something about his or her performance, have him look at his or her performance where perhaps they're not performing up to great standards. Well, winning might be that you as a manager can lead an inquiry with the employee, not just telling him, you suck, this is not good work, but leading an inquiry into, gee, okay, what do you think? Was this in line with our goals? What was missing? Do you see anything that you did well here? Do you think there's anything you could do better? What you're doing is you're growing your employee. Well, that's winning for the employee. Sometimes the employee might feel uncomfortable, or the manager might feel uncomfortable. But so what? You can deal with your discomfort. You're still winning. So you have, in some ways, you redefine what winning is. Does that make sense?
That does, and that makes sense. And thank you for sharing that with us. I really appreciate that. Well, then, maybe you've already answered this in a sense, but then what would you say is the most important message of the book?
The most important message of the book, sometimes I change my mind about what that is.
That's fine.
What comes up for me is probably two things. One is you can be the creator of your life. And in order to be the creator of your life, you must be open to learning where you stop yourself. And when you are courageous in doing that, you will see that you have far greater power in your life than you think you have. That's mine for today.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that as well with us. I really do appreciate that, Ingrid. And now now how can people get in contact with yourself? Because we've been putting your website up on the screen, and also your book's been coming up on there a number of times. But is the website the best way to get in contact with yourself?
Well, you can certainly email me too, but the website gives the contact information. I'd like to get emails. coach@ingridmartine.com is the best email address probably, and people can call me. I'd love to get calls from the UK, and if people know how to make an international call, they can get in contact with me for what I call a conversation for possibilities, about how to use the book, or what would it be like to have a book study online, or about coaching, and how it could be sort of a service for them because they don't have to use me as a coach. It might just be a good conversation to find out what they should be looking for in a coach. I do recommend coaching, and if anybody wants to have a personal conversation about that, that's great. You can contact me on Facebook. I'm certainly accessible.
Excellent. Well, I'd just like to say, Ingrid Martine, thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, it is my pleasure, Kevin. Thank you. It was a lot easier today, wasn't it?
It was absolutely perfect. Thank you so much. Well, we've come to an end on tonight's show. Don't forget that you can listen and watch all our past interviews on the More Show's official YouTube channel. Remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel for new daily shows. You may also find out more on all past and upcoming guests on the show via themoreshow.co.uk, and do like us on Facebook and Twitter for the latest updates. So until next time, be safe.